What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hey, everybody.
Chris, we are joined by another lovely guest this week.
He's not that lovely.
Yeah, that might be true, but anyway, here is Louis Tomasello. What's up, Louis?
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Good, doing good, I guess. I mean, we have you on the show, so as good as can be expected.
Wow, throwing some serious shade already.
Well, before we start, I just wanted to say I attended a lovely mass at the Church of Kingdom Hearts recently and listened to a lovely sermon from Pope Goofy, and I noticed that none of you guys were there. What happened?
Oh, yeah, we
were sitting way in the back.
Really? Did you hear the part about Monsters, Inc.?
I'm one of those, Kingdom Hearts thousandists who only goes on Christmas and Easter, so.
Guys, you gotta come to church. Kingdom Hearts is coming. It's only a matter of time.
I forgot.
No, listen.
If you have forgotten at home, Louis is a Kingdom Hearts cultist, and he still believes the day of reckoning of Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming. And
it's 2018, confirmed.
Louis is clearly a lost soul.
It's never going to happen, Louis. Kingdom Hearts 3 is never going to be released. That is the official position of the podcast.
And that is your opinion.
Oh my goodness. Lou, let me ask you.
All right, fair enough.
I noticed that you are here this weekend and not at PAX as you were 1 year ago.
Yeah, PAX just didn't do it for me this year. Didn't have a lot of the money to go there, so I was like, that's okay. I don't have to go this year. I have friends who are telling me about it.
You hear that, Pax? You didn't do enough to lure Louis back to the show this year. You need to step up your game. You got to get with the program. Louis is a man with very high standards. He's a very high-class individual, and the show needs to step up its game. And, yeah, clearly it's floundering this year.
Yeah, I remember last year when we had that PAX episode, how you were explaining basically you were waiting in line a lot and just, a lot of time just standing around and it being so crowded. And we kind of thought to ourselves, this is something that a lot of people seem to like, but we don't really understand why a lot of people would go through all the effort to get there. And it kind of ties into what we're talking about this week.
Ooh, nice segue.
Yes, it does. Yeah, our topic this week is we're going to be discussing some games that are popular with a lot of the younger gamers out there, with a lot of gamers out there in general, and we can't really wrap our heads around why these games are as popular as they are.
Yeah, this was Lewis's idea. He brought it to me earlier in the week, and I thought it was a really great one. Lou, you got any introductory ideas on it?
Yeah. Well, recently I've been working at a store that sells games. I'm not gonna say which store that is.
Let's just say it's a store you can stop in to look for games.
Yes, that's exactly as what I was gonna say.
Yep, the stopping game.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and lately I've just been you work behind the counter, you hear a lot of what people want, and a lot of the games are just, surprisingly, I can't relate to some people because, once in a while you get, a guy who comes in who wants, the newest shooter or the newest thing, and then you got the random parent who's just like, where's the Fortnite? And I'm just like, I can't answer that. Where's the Fortnite?
Yeah, that's definitely a game we'll be talking about later, amongst others. But before we get into that conversation, Lou, it's been a while since you've been on, so why don't you tell us, what are you playing?
Okay, so it has been a while, and I've been mulling over what to talk about because it has been so long that I don't want to overload the podcast with everything I've been playing. So I had to write down all the things I've played recently. And I'm just going to talk about the ones I kind of played a lot of and just was kind of in a phase when playing it. So I think the first one I'm playing right now currently is Pokemon Ultra Sun, and I'm doing a Nuzlocke run of it.
Now, what is a Nuzlocke run? I've heard this expression used before with the Pokemon games, but could you elaborate a little?
A Nuzlocke is a special type of ruling that you give yourself. It's a way to kind of make the game a little more challenging. So the first thing about a Nuzlocke is that you start a new game, you randomly get a starter depending on the last number of your ID card. Every game you start out with an ID card with a number on it, and depending on what the last digit is, that's what starter you choose in. So if it's 1, 2, 3, it's usually the first pick. 4, 5, 6 is the second pick, and then 7, 8, 9 is the last pick. This one I got. I'll explain later, but I had to play the game over once already because of shenanigans. But right now I got the water starter because my number was like a 9, so it was the last digit, so I got the last pick. After that, every new area you go to, you can only capture one Pokemon. Whatever the first Pokemon you capture or you see in that one area, you either have to capture it, or if you can't capture it, you kill it, and then you can't catch any Pokemon after that. So it becomes really random. Like if you go into this one area, you might get a Ghastly, and then if you capture it, that'll be your Ghastly for the rest of the game. Or if you go to another area and you get like a Rattata, but it can't be the same Pokemon twice. So if you have a Rattata and you go to another area, if you see another Rattata, you can't capture it. So you have to wait until you find another Pokemon you haven't seen yet. The most important ruling is that at the end, if you're in the middle of a battle and one of your Pokemon faints, they're pretty much considered dead. So you can't use them anymore. So you either have to release them into the wild or shove it into a box and don't touch it forever.
A dead Pokemon carcass in a box.
I'm just thinking of like the last scene in Seven, where Brad Pitt is like threatening to shoot Kevin Spacey. What's in the box? And Morgan Freeman like looks in the box and there's like a dead Pikachu in there. And he's like, what's in the box? And Freeman's like, oh god.
Now after those main rules, you can add other rules to your Nuzlocke run. So you can say like no potions in battle, or you can say like maybe in one area if you can headbutt a tree and a Pokemon comes out, you can still capture it and stuff like that. But it becomes a lot more challenging that way because then you have less choice in the kind of Pokemon you catch, but at the same time you're also trying to make your team work, and it kind of becomes like kind of like how Fire Emblem is. It's like when you have that everything dies kind of mechanic.
Permadeath.
Yeah, permadeath. So once you have permadeath in a game, you kind of feel more attached to the things you have, and you don't want them to die. So you're just trying to like do your best. I found out very quickly it's a lot harder in Pokemon Ultra Sun than I've watched, and it's a lot harder than most people would think. So to kind of like tell a story, I started my playthrough with a Litten, which is the fire type. And I was like, oh, cool. Lynn's like my favorite starter. And I'm just like, I'm going to beat through this and I'm going to have such a strong team. Well, I get all the way to the trainer school. Usually the trainer school is where all the baby Pokemon fights are. And you think, the trainer school. I'm just going to like collect this money and just go. You get there and it's so much harder than you think. I was so surprised and a little bit distraught at the end of it. There was I had 5 Pokemon going in, and I fought this one kid who had a Bonsai, who was like a rock type Pokemon, And I was like, okay, well, I'll just throw out this Pokemon and I'll kill it real quick. The Bonsley killed it in like one hit. I was like, what? Like, I was just like, oh my god, I can't use you anymore. I gotta let you go.
Them's the rules,
okay.
buddy.
I know, and I was like, okay, I gotta follow the rules and I gotta release it, but I was like, okay, well, maybe this was just a fluke. I go through the other matches and, they've got a little bit of annoying Pokemon, but I was like, fine. One kid had an Ekans, and I threw out my Slowpoke thinking, okay, Slowpoke will take care of it. Well, I forgot that, I thought because Slowpoke was a Psychic type, it would be fine. But it put my Slowpoke in a wrap, and I was like, oh crap, he's going to die soon. And I try to pull him out, and I can't pull him out because he's in a wrap. A wrap can't let you switch Pokemon. And I was just like, oh my god, my Slowpoke's gonna die. What am I gonna do?
He turns to look at you, and he's like, Father, save me.
That's what I actually thought. I was like, oh my god. So I had to let him die, and I was like, oh god, this is depressing.
Oh god.
This is really bumming me out.
Hey, this is brutal, man.
And then finally, I beat the kids, and then the teacher calls you in, and at first they're like, oh, what'd you do? You got called by the teacher. I was like, I don't know. I got called him. I just joined this school. I don't know what happened. So I go and I talk to the teacher, and the teacher's like, hey, so you beat all my kids. Congratulations. Now I want to fight you. I was like, okay, sure. Throws out a Poplio, which is the water type starter. I was like, okay, I'll just throw out my other water type and hopefully it'll survive. It didn't survive. None of my Pokemon survived after that. It would just use water gun, and it was so strong I didn't know why.
Well, isn't that the problem with this specific run, is that being forced to use a certain Pokemon is that you can't play the game with, like, the counter strategy, right? Like, you have to, if you're fighting an enemy that is super effective against your type, like, you just gotta eat it, right?
Well, yeah, it depends on the Pokemon you start out with. So, like, I had already had a bug type, a couple normal dark types, and I had a Magnemite, and the Magnemite got hit by a water gun and died instantly. So I was like, what the hell? Like, why? It's like, why is this happening? Like, the stats on the Pokemon become much, much more important in Nuzlocke run than they do in, like, normal, like, Pokemon runs. Like, you don't consider that in a normal Pokemon run. Like, oh, you just think about the typing, and that's it. Well, I made a mistake of thinking that I could just rely on the typing, and then all my Pokemon died. So when all your Pokemon die in a Nuzlocke, then that's it. You're considered wiped out, so you're considered dead too. So I had to start the whole game over.
Oh, man.
So luckily I was okay with it. I wasn't that far in the game, so I told myself, all right, I'll just start over. It's no big deal. But you do. I ever since then I had to be much more careful. Right now, my current run, I have 5 Pokemon that I lost, so I'm just trying to be more careful as I go.
Seems like the way to go is to just proceed with extreme caution.
Yeah. So after that one, the last game I played after Pokemon was No Kuni II Revenant Kingdom.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I did. It was on my list, so I told myself, okay. I had thought about waiting, but then I was like, nah, I should probably get it. It was on my top 5 list. So I got it, and oh my god, it's so good.
How does it compare to the first game?
To the first game, it's pretty much the same world and the same kind of like themes that you see around the game, but the two are almost completely unrelated. They're from what I hear, it's like the first game is very far in the past compared to this one, so It's almost like a Final Fantasy where it's the same type of like characters, like you see Moogles and Chocobos, but none of the characters are the same, and none of the story isn't the same to anything else in the previous games. So it's like a fresh game. But this one, so you're a young prince who recently lost their father, the king, in their kingdom, and then you become the king, but your kingdom is being overthrown by these rat people. You're a cat prince, and the rat people despise the cat king, so they plan to poison him and kill him, and now they're trying to kill you so they can overthrow the kingdom.
I hate when that happens.
But one of the characters, Roland, he was the president of the real world, and he gets transported to your world, and he takes you and helps you escape your kingdom, because he's automatically a badass when you first see him. Like, he's got a gun and everything. I'm just like, you're a president?
Yeah, I heard that intro. It's pretty crazy.
It is. It's pretty fun. But you escape, and then things happen, and your character, the cat prince, Evan, is overthrown, and now he's trying to reclaim his kingdom by making a whole new one. And you're basically the way the game plays now. In the older game, it was a lot like Pokemon in the sense that you had a character, and that character can capture. They were. I'm blanking on the word. It wasn't like a monster. It was like it was familiars. They were monster familiars. So then, they basically were the monsters you fought. You could have a chance to capture them and then put them in your party. And you had up to 3 monsters per character, and you usually had a max of 3 characters in your party. So in total, that would be 6 characters that you had to micromanage.
Right. Yeah, it was almost like a little Pokemon-y, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lot more turn-based and a lot more like going around and making it. It was all like very. If you can imagine Pokemon, but you had 3 Pokemon you had to manage, and it was a real-time strategy game. So if you waited too long to think about what to do next, then the monster who you're fighting could potentially just kill you.
Right.
So you had to like think on your feet as you go.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. I haven't played either. I watched my brother play some of the first one, and it's pretty fascinating how, from what I'm hearing and researching, that this game is quite different from the first one. As in, the first one, like as you said, was more turn-based. This one's more like of an active battle, almost similar to like the Tales games battle system, and just like a whole, a little bit of the presentation is different. There's just like a lot of vast changes in this like sequel, and you don't really see that too often in games. I feel like. Yeah.
So the gameplay, is definitely different in the second game. You're more action oriented than you are turn-based, and you go around. You have each character can hold up to 4 weapons, 3 melee and a range weapon, and you can switch on and off depending on your play style. And you also gain like abilities over time, which you can use. And then you have the Himmeldies, which are the little kind of Ghibli kind of mascots. How to describe them, because the game kind of just glazes over the fact that they're there, and then you get them for the rest of the game. They're like little spirits that are made up of elements. So there's like a wind one, there's a fire one, and there's a hero, and then there's like little like soldier ones that follow the hero one. So you can have the 4 of the hero Himmeldies in your party, and they do whatever they want. They act on their own. Sometimes they'll jump around, and then you go over to them and select them, and they'll do like a magical ability or something big. Like one of them turns into a cannon that fires at the monster. Another one makes like a giant dark attack, or the wind one heals you. So it becomes a little more like Pikmin mixed with Tales games. So it's different, and you don't normally have to know all of these mechanics at first to play the game, because it's pretty easy to kind of pick up and play, but you do learn over time. It kind of, after first 5 hours or 6 hours into the game, you get into the army building mechanic, which is there's certain like skirmishes that you'll have to participate in. So you'll have Evan in the center, and then you'll have armies that circle around you, and you have to approach different armies in the skirmish and then defeat them. And the it's kind of hard to describe. The armies will circle you, and you can choose where to position them in the center of the map. And then as you're moving, they'll attack the nearest people that encounter you. And then you just have to get to one side of the map to the other and defeat all the enemies. That part, I think, is almost as fun. It's almost like playing a completely different game at that point. But I haven't played too much into it yet, so I'm just kind of learning as I go.
Yeah, I'm really interested in looking into that. Maybe I'll pick it up at some point. I love the art style. I like the world they've built. The characters sound really cool. It's something that I definitely want to look into. I'm glad you got it, so I can like kind of talk about it with you and see if it's worth getting.
Yeah, the story and the art style are definitely what pretty much pulled me into the game. And if that's mostly a reason enough, if you're interested in buying it, to get it. The gameplay to me is like a second. Like, don't even worry about it, because if you're mainly there for the fact that it's like a Ghibli inspired movie and that it's made with characters that are really fun and whimsical, then that they deliver that to the T. Like, that's one of the main draws for me in the game.
Yeah.
For me, like, that's always been the appeal for the games for me. Like, I never played them either, but I always wanted to, just because of that art style and that feeling of, oh, hey, I'm playing a Studio Ghibli movie. Like, it's so hard to resist that art style, and especially the movies themselves are just so good. Like, they're all of them classics.
The one thing I will critique about it that I wish they would do more of, voice acting in the game is not very big, and you don't hear it a lot. Besides, after the very beginning portion of the game, you start to hear like dropouts of like character voice acting. Like, most of the time it's just you're reading the character dialogue, and then once in a while you hear like the characters say like, oh man, oh, it's like oh, hey, boss, and like very like voice lines in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but I wish I could hear more. Like, in the old game, I felt like there was a lot more voice acting and a lot more, but the things that were very scarce in the first game were there was like actual hand-drawn animated cutscenes that they would splash in every once in a while. And this one, they don't even have the hand-drawn animated cutscenes, and now there's even less voice acting in the show, and I was just like thinking,
I remember hearing somewhere that Studio Ghibli is way less involved, like, with the sequel than they were with the first one. Like, they still are a part of it, but like it's just not as much as they were in the first one.
Yeah, I heard that too. It's mostly because Ghibli animation is on a hiatus at the moment. So the only people they could rehire to do some of the parts in the film were some people who were involved in Ghibli. So they couldn't get the whole team to help them this time around, but they had the art assets and they had the style, so they figured they could just remake it and do it this way.
Right.
Which it doesn't, like I said, it's just a minor critique. I don't hate it. I wish they could do a little more with it, but I'm fine with what they have at the moment. So the last game I'll mention real quick is I had a recent tangent of South Park games that I completed. I had gone back into the show and I was curious about playing the game, so I bought the Stick of Truth, and then I also bought the Fractured Butthole.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
I heard the Stick of Truth is a very good game, like surprisingly good RPG.
It is. Think Paper Mario and just roll with it, as because South Park humor is just the main draw of the game. But you do have to like button mash some parts in Stick and Truth. Like you have to time your attacks right, and you have to time your dodges, because if you don't time your blocks right, then you're gonna get completely murdered, and then you're gonna have to start over. So a lot of people like the Stick of Truth because it was a pure turn-based RPG that they were spoofing. So, and I can see why. I definitely liked playing the Stick of Truth. So, if you are interested in something funny, which South Park usually has its own brand of humor, and you wanted a nice turn-based game to play, then that's a good one to pick up.
Now, is the humor like a lot more, for lack of a better word, risque or like over the top in these games than it is on the actual show itself?
Yes. It's South Park, so I can tell you there's one part in the game where you're sucked into. Well, there's actually quite a few parts. So there's one part where you're kidnapped by aliens, and the aliens in South Park kidnap you and try and probe you in your ass. So you see like scenes where so you see scenes like where the dad, Stan's dad, is like with you in the same room as you, and he's just like, "Hey, yeah, I'm used to this by now." And you see him like getting like I don't want to say it. Like he's getting effed up.
Yeah.
By this probe.
Yeah. Let your imaginations run wild, folks.
You don't even need an imagination. They will show you the actual effing, which is fun. And
how fun?
There's another. Well, you do. You're the one who activates it half the time by accident, which is funny. But there's another one where you're fighting a bunch of gnomes. The gnomes in South Park steal your underwear. I don't know why. Just it's South Park. So they steal your underwear, and you're trying to go in. You shrink down to their size, and you're trying to find them. And you end up in your parents' room, and your parents are in the middle of having sex. So as you're fighting them, you see them in the background, just rigorously having sex, and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't with that game.
It's kind of great that they didn't even like try to hold back, you know?
No, they didn't. It was so good. So I do hear a lot of things about how the humor in the first game is a lot of references to the show. So if you're not, let's say you hadn't watched all 7 seasons of the show before you played the game, then you might be a little lost in terms of some of the jokes that they're trying to do. But, you know, if you've seen some of like the major episodes, like about the crab people or the aliens, then I think you can probably figure out what's going on in the show.
Dude, there's like 20 seasons of South Park.
I mean, I was throwing out a number.
Gotcha.
But I think, the game came out during like episode 8, 16, or 17. Because I know it was like a few seasons later when the new South Park game came out like recently. So
right.
Now the second game is a lot different from the first game in terms of gameplay. And the second game, instead of turn-based strategy, it's still kind of turn-based, but you have a grid that you kind of walk around on, and then you have attacks that will like push enemies against each other, and you have area of effect moves, and it's a lot more kind of more tabletop than just magic and attacks and range attacks and all that stuff. I kind of like the humor in the second game a lot better, but they're both equally as good, and I like them, so you take it as you want. If you're not into the comedy that South Park likes to show, then I wouldn't recommend it, but they're very good games despite the humor.
Cool.
All
Fair
right,
enough.
cool.
Yeah. So, who should I pass it off to? I think I'll give it to Justin.
Woo! I win.
Aww. All right. Back to taking a nap.
Wait, what?
I take this podcast very seriously.
Wow. Okay. Yes, so I picked up Far Cry 5 this week and started playing that. Yep.
I'm excited to hear this. I didn't hear too much about it.
Probably because there's not really that much to hear about it. Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking it was kind of reminding me of my relationship with Final Fantasy 15 when I was playing that, where it was kind of like a love-hate kind of thing. There are parts of this game that I really do enjoy, like the shooting feels really good, the guns are cool, the environments are really well developed, it's fun to explore. It's a really like well-made open world game where like there's a lot of payoffs and stuff you can find. But like the story and the characters, the story's like alright, it's not great, it's like kind of like cliche, you can kind of like see what's coming, but the characters are so like just flat and boring, and the dialogue's not that good, and like you don't really care about anybody. You yourself are like such a generic, like boring character. Like I think later in the game you can make some money and like you can buy more like clothing for your character. But in the very beginning of the game, when you can customize your guy, you can pick from like maybe 4 or 5 hairstyles, like 4 or 5 shirts, and like 4 or 5 pants, and like that's pretty much it. And like you all look like basically the same. Like there's like no facial hair, no tattoos. Like you can't change eye color, your height. Like you can't like do any of that stuff. It is so basic. And I know it's a first-person game, so you're not even really seeing your guy that much at all. But you can like when you bring up your menu, like there's a character customization like screen where you see your dude and like you can change their outfit and stuff. And I remember I was playing and like Zool came in the room and he was like, "That's your guy?" He looks so generic. He's like, "What is his name? Like Joe American?" And like it was just so like that's like so much of the game. Like all the people you meet, like they don't really have stories. Like it's just I don't know. The game very much feels like to me just like a vehicle to just kill bad guys. It's like, here's the story. Bad things are happening. These guys are bad and they need someone to stop, them from doing bad things. And that is you. Here are some guns. Go kill the guys. And like that's like the whole game pretty much. I mean, apparently a lot of Far Cries are like that. This is the first Far Cry I've ever played. But, I've heard a lot of complaints are the same thing, that they were wanting more from this story and not just another Far Cry game, but they just got another Far Cry game. And it's kind of a bummer.
You say like it's, it's just a lot of killing enemies, but is it at least like fun to kill the enemies? Like, is it satisfying, or does it just get like, are there only so many different ways you can actually kill the enemies and it just gets old after a while?
Yeah, like that's the thing. It is fun. Like the shooting feels really responsive. Like the physics are good. Like the way you can kill people is crazy. Like there were a lot of different vehicles you can fly and take control of, which is awesome, but also kind of sucks because they're kind of hard to control. But I mean, like the actual gameplay is pretty fun, and there's a main co-op mode in the game where you can just kind of play through the whole campaign with somebody, and apparently that's like the way to play the game. And I haven't done that. Like me and Butch were going to do that because he got it too and he beat it already, and we were going to run through it together, but we haven't just had a chance to do that yet. So I am looking forward to that. I am still like having fun playing it. But I don't know, it's like it's just not sticking, and I feel like it's getting to the point where I'm like, do I really want to like sit down and play that right now? Maybe later, like it's already kind of losing like its attractiveness, I guess, to me, and like I'm still kind of early on, but yeah, I don't know. It's maybe for different people though, like it a lot more, But for me, I'm like kind of disappointed by it. Still fun. I still do want to play it at times, but like the overall experience is kind of leaving me feeling a little flat.
You were actually part of a focus group that was involved with this game, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. It was a few years ago, and that was another reason why I wanted to get this game, to see like if they really made any changes or anything based on our feedback. And it's kind of hard to remember because it was so long ago, and I don't know really if they did listen to us or not. But I mean, back then, I'm sure they really didn't have too much like set in stone already. It might have still been like deciding like the tone of the game and where they wanted to go with it. They definitely like captured Montana the same way they were showing us it in the focus group, and they had like this whole idea of like America and guns and like we gotta save our guns and kind of stuff. And this was during a lot of like school shootings in the world, and us as the members of the focus group were like, this probably isn't the best idea. We should probably like tone it down a little bit. And maybe I don't know, maybe they listened to that, and maybe that's why they didn't go too like hard in one direction in the story or something. But yeah, I don't know. I think I still want to play it some more.
Interesting, because I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's like one of those things because Ubisoft is a European
right
developer.
Yeah.
Is it one of those things that maybe because from a European's perspective that's interesting, and that's what they wanted to make for their games? So from like maybe someone from England or France are picking up the game now and thinking, oh, this is interesting because this is how America acts. And I'm just thinking, oh God, I hope that's not how they portray us.
Yeah, no, I think about that too. It could be very true. This is the first Far Cry game to take place in America. They represented a bunch of other countries and islands and stuff in the previous games. So, yeah, I mean, that could very well be true. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely interesting. The game looks really, really great. Like the graphics are really good. I'm playing on PC, and it's probably the most like demanding game I've played on my PC since I built it like about a year or two ago. And it's running fine. Looks great. Like the particle effects and like the leaves and everything on the trees and the grass look really good. There's some really crazy like partners you can get. Like you can get a dog named Boomer, and then you can get a bear named Cheeseburger, who I haven't got yet, but I'm really looking forward to getting him.
I've heard a lot about Cheeseburger, and I'm very excited for the opportunity for you to get Cheeseburger.
Yeah, Far Cry games are very like they're serious, but they're also very silly. There was one like quest where I had to clear out this encampment of bad guys, and I was like up like on a hill, and I was like creeping in, and I was like setting my position, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna start by like shooting this guy, and then maybe I'll sneak down here and take out this guy. And then all of a sudden, like a wild bear just like burst into the encampment and just started killing everybody. And I'm just like watching this happen from like up on my little perch, and I'm just seeing the bear take out these people one by one. And then he killed the last guy, and then like the little graphic on the screen came on and said like, mission completed. Like I didn't do anything. The bear did the whole thing. Yeah, so that was pretty great.
All right, cool. What else you got?
Yep. I have been playing more Chrono Trigger. Popped back into that, and got a little bit farther. I got Robo in my party. Went to the future, and did some exploring there, cleaned out the factory, made it to the end of time, which sounds like a lot more like threatening than it really is. I'm having so much fun replaying that game that I had never beaten before, and I think I talked about this before, but like I love how playing this game, it came out in like 1995 or 6, and just like how like good it feels to play it now. Like I don't have any trouble like controlling it or anything, or just with the presentation of the game. It's just like something I can totally sit down, relax, and play, and not feel like so dated or anything. It's just awesome to be able to experience that again.
Yeah, man, that's just old school classic right there. I mean, what honestly can you say? It's Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I'm just taking my time with it and just like really enjoying that game, and the characters, the music. Like, it's just, it's a classic Super Nintendo game. Like, to be able to play that again. Like I said, I'm using the Super NES Classic controller with it, which is great. To be able to plug that into the Wiimote and play it with that feels so good. It's just awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, but not too much to talk about for that. And the only other thing that I have been playing, which I'm pretty sure this will lead into you, Chris, so I'll talk very briefly about it because I just started playing it, but I got Minit.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, this is a game that is available on Steam, PS4, and Xbox One. I think it came out not even a week ago. And
yeah, it's very recently released.
Yeah, the idea is this is a game where it's like an adventure game with very simple monochromatic graphics, like very similar to the old school Game Boy, and you're this little duck person guy, and you're just exploring the area, interacting with people. You find a sword, you're looking for items, and just trying to get through this world. But the kicker is that you have to explore everything within a minute's time, and at the end of this counter of a minute, your character dies and you respawn back at the beginning of the game. You can find more spawn points later in the game so that when you die you respawn there. And it's weird because the idea of that sounded kind of initially awful to me. I was like, I don't want to play a game where I'm dying every minute. That sounds so annoying. But it's very fluent and it kind of works well with the game. And it doesn't really seem to be that annoying playing it for me so far. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, but I'm really early and I've only played for 20 minutes so far.
All right, very nice.
Yeah, so I'll just I'll throw the ball to you on that one, Chris, and you can take it from there.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll take this one and then I'll slam dunk it from half court. So I got mad hops. I do not.
I can't see it.
No,
Yeah.
I don't. No. I'm 5'7". I can't do anything on the court. Minit. I actually beat Minit, so I got through the whole thing. I shared my final stats on Twitter. It took me about an hour and 6 minutes or so to beat the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I had it said 92 runs, which I'm guessing is the different times where I died, and I had 60 seconds to get through and actually play through again. Now, I had more runs than I actually had time. Then there were minutes in the actual game that I played and I beat it, because I discovered that one of the buttons that you can use, I got the game on the PS4. The X button is your attack button, where you get your sword that curses you to a minute's life, and you can attack with that, but the circle button will kill you right then and there, and then it will take you back to your spawn point, like you mentioned. So
yeah, it helps you restart if you get stuck, or something like that.
Yeah, so if you're if you don't know what to do, or if you've accomplished a goal that you've set out for yourself within that minute's time, and you decide, okay, I'm not even just going to waste these few seconds to die, I'm just going to die right now, then you can do that. And the game reminds me a lot of the Zelda series. Particularly, it reminds me of Link's Awakening.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to say that and I forgot. And that's awesome, because I was feeling the same exact thing when I started playing it.
Yeah, the style of it, it's got that top-down perspective, but all the characters they're sprite-based and they just kind of roam around the entire area, and it's got that monochromatic look to it, where your character will wander around, and then you even go down to the beach and you discover the sword on the beach. And I'm like, oh man, this is calling back so much to the Zelda series. And then
maybe it's more intentional than I thought.
And then the whole minute cycle reminded me a lot of the same system that was in place with Majora's Mask, where you have the 3-day cycle with the town, and you have to restart time every now and then to progress in the game. And the gameplay in Minit is very similar to that, where you kind of have to set little short-term goals for yourself so you progress little by little throughout the game. So, like, let's say, there's you find a shopkeeper, and he says, boy, I don't have any business around here. If only someone could do something about these crabs. And by the time you realize that information, you die. So it's like, okay, with this next minute, I'm just going to go around and I'm going to kill the crabs. So you go and you kill the crabs, and hopefully by that point you have enough time to get back to the shopkeeper, and he will actually give you an item that will let you, say, push blocks, and then you die. And the way the game is set up is once you get items or you get abilities, you keep those items and abilities with you as you progress towards the next minute of gameplay. So now you have this ability with you as you start back up again to push blocks. So now, instead of going, say, to the left, now you can go to the right, and you can push a block that was blocking your path that way, and you can progress as far as you can in the game there. And I can understand, Justin, I was thinking to myself, because I remember you talking about how you didn't really like time-based gameplay mechanics like that because they because they stress you out so much. You feel like you have so much to do. I had a feeling that you were going to be suspicious of Minit going into it, but the way the game is set up, I agree with you. It feels very fluid. It's got a good flow to it where, I mean, you go in and you understand, okay, you're going to die. You have these 60 seconds to accomplish whatever it is you're going to do. Let me just take this time, and I'm just going to explore as much of the area as I can to figure out, okay, what can I do? What is there to determine? So, like, say I'll explore one area, and I'll see, oh, there's a dead end here, and there's nothing I can do, and then you die. Well, now, the next minute, okay, I'm not even going to bother going that way. I'm just going to go somewhere else because there is going to be something else for me to do going in this other direction. And this game has a lot of different little secrets and items that you can discover as you progress through the game. So, like, you have hearts to collect, coins to collect. There's all sorts of different weapons and hidden abilities that you can collect. The areas so that you can explore, like, there's a desert, there's like a little watery area, there's an island to explore. I mean, they really switched up a lot of the areas that there are to explore in the game, and the different things that you can do in these different areas, plus all around the land that you're exploring. And it's really fun. It's the dialogue can be pretty funny sometimes because everyone is just kind of like, doing their thing. And it seems like you need to get, like, the whole point of the game is you need to get to the sword factory, which is manufacturing all of these swords, which are affecting everyone who grabs one. So you got the sword, so now you're cursed with the 60-second lifespan. Well, anyone else who gets these swords is too. So you have to go to the sword factory and stop this, so that way you can actually live your life for longer than a minute.
Is there any way to slow down the time? Do they give you, like, an ability later on that kind of helps out?
No, you just have, I mean, it's a solid 60 seconds. So whereas, like, different games, like the old school Mario games, like, their seconds are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like, they go down real quick like that. Minit, as far as I know. Now, when I beat the game, I think I got 46% of the items. I really want to go back and explore more of it because there's just so much to explore. There might be an item that will help slow down time for you, but if there is, I haven't found it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the gameplay is really good. The puzzles are pretty creative. I mean, they're not too challenging, I don't think, but each time as you go through your lifespan, you kind of get more and more of an idea, okay, what is it I'm supposed to do in these areas? Am I just wasting my time doing X, Y, and Z? And, I mean, the game isn't too punishing as long as you don't, say, explore too far away from, like, where your spawn point is, and you don't really make any progress, because that can get a little frustrating if, say, you're trying to get to a particular location and it's really far away, and just before you get there, you die. So then you have to start all over again, and you have to try to be faster than you were last time.
Yeah, I think the promise of spawn points is what keeps this game from being frustrating. It's like, yeah, I'm dying a lot, I'm restarting at this one place, but I know, like, when I find that one screen that has that camper that I can go in and get that new spawn point, like, it won't matter anymore, and then I'll be a lot closer to a bunch of new screens that I haven't been to yet to explore. And it's just that process, like, that repetition that I think, progresses throughout the whole game, and, I would assume is, like, really what it just prevents the idea of dying every minute just from getting too stale and too obtrusive.
Right. And not to spoil anything, but late in the game, there was a point where I needed to use another one of my items that I had used to progress the story along. And so I had to go back to... I had to try to go back to the new spawn point. I had to get a new spawn point so that I could trigger this item to appear, so that I could grab it and take it back to the area where I needed to use it. Well, I died literally just outside the front door of this spawn point. So instead of that spawn point, I went to the old spawn point that I had, and I was able to pick up the item that I needed from there, but my path to the area where I needed to use it was blocked because I needed the old item that I had left behind, and I couldn't use that to clear my path to this area. So I thought I had broken the game a little. I was like, what do I do? Because I couldn't use the item that I had to get through to where I needed to be. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I spent like several lives trying to figure it out, and I literally had to go all the way. I figured it out by finagling my way all the way across the map. I took a long way around. I used all the old spawn points just to like save my progress as I went along. And then I discovered that as I had progressed, I had gotten a lot of abilities. I could cross paths that I couldn't have crossed before, and I was able to make my way to the spawn point that I needed originally. So I made that my spawn point, killed myself, and then I left, and then I was able to get back to that area that I needed to. And I realized all that sounded like gibberish, but I needed to keep it. I needed to keep it spoiler free, because I mean, like,
you did a pretty good job.
Yeah, if you get to that part, it's the point in the game where you lose one of your main items, and so you have to now use your other item to progress the story. If you play the game far enough, you will understand.
It'll make sense.
You'll understand. It'll make sense in context.
Right.
But yeah,
Wow.
I really, 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 really love this game. I thought it was a lot of fun, really well designed. It kept me interested. It kept me engaged. I really had a lot of fun with it. Well done to the developers at Vlambeer. They knocked it out of the park with this one.
Yeah, it's very charming. Love the presentation. Music is great. And thanks to Nick for suggesting that we both play this game. He left a comment on our Twitter to check it out.
Yes. all credit to Nick. Even though I had planned to play this game beforehand, it was a good call by Nick to see this game and remind us that, hey, this one is coming along. Maybe you guys should play it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll have to try picking up too. What systems is it for?
It's on all three. It's on PC, PS4, and Xbox. Not on Switch, unfortunately, but I could definitely see this coming down the line for Switch.
Cool. I'll try and find it. Sounds really fun.
Yes.
Minit.
Let me see. The other game that I had played this week, this is a game that it's not officially out yet, but it's a game that I've kind of been tracking on Twitter for a while now. It's an indie game, and it's called Jenny LeClue Detective-oo.
I've seen you tweeting about this, but I haven't really seen any screenshots or videos or anything.
Yeah, honestly, the game just looks aesthetically just fantastic. It's got kind of like a paper cutout look to it, but it's like really high def and really detailed. It's got amazing lighting effects. Like everything is very dark and mysterious. Like flashlights get shined everywhere, and they light up different areas, and you see like different particle effects in the air. Like it's a 2D adventure style game, but the level of detail put into the sound design and the graphics and art design of this game is just amazing. I'm not entirely sure how long the game has been in development, but it's been in development since at least 2016 when it was revealed, and I think that was a PC trailer at that point. Since then, the game had been announced for like PC, Macintosh, Linux, and iOS. Since then, it's also been confirmed for PS4. I don't know if it's coming out for the Xbox One or the Switch anytime soon, but those are the systems that it's slated to come out for. And the idea of Jenny LeClue is there is a fictional character called Arthur K. Finkelstein, and he is the author of the fictional popular children's detective series Jenny LeClue. And he kind of serves as the narrator for you as you're playing the game. And Jenny LeClue, you're currently playing his latest novel, Jenny LeClue Detective-oo, where Jenny's mother has been framed for murder, and you, as the young, 11 or 12-year-old detective, she's very much Nancy Drew, has to clear her mother's name and figure out the mystery surrounding both this murder and the citizens of the fictional town of Arthurton. The game right now, you can wishlist it on Steam, and it's also available on itch.io, and they have a playable trailer for the game available on itch. So I decided, you know what? I've been following this game for a while. This game is an adventure game. Like, it just looks amazing. I love the Twitter account, sharing all the different design steps along the way. I was like, you know what? I want to try this out. I want to play it. So I downloaded it, and you play this short little snippet where you're sneaking into a mansion, and as you sneak into the mansion, you have to go past a bookcase, and there's lots of different books that you need to pull out that needs to unlock a secret door that's hidden behind the bookcase. And the way that the clues are laid out on which books you need to pull out and the different sequences you need to go through are very, really cleverly laid out and hidden. And it was one of those things where you're going into the puzzle and you're like, what is it I need to do? And then you figure out and you're like, aha, I'm a genius, even though you're not. That's how a good puzzle is designed. It makes you feel a lot smarter than you are. You sneak into the mansion and you're sneaking along and the floorboards creak and there's a storm raging outside. And what's really cool is the storm is raging outside and you can see the rain is like smearing on the glass as it's raining down. Sometimes it smears on the screen in front of you, like in the foreground, as you're watching the action happen in front of you. It's just like, it honestly looks really cool, and it got me even more excited to play the game. It's slated for a 2018 release, nothing more specific than that, but I'm honestly hoping a lot sooner rather than later, because this game is right up my alley, and it just looks so much fun.
That's awesome. I didn't know there was a playable trailer out.
Yeah, I think it's free right now. The developer specifically was like, "Hey, I have I have a trailer here. It's playable. It's 100% free. Just here's the steps on how to download it for free. Just play it. Leave me any feedback, good or bad, and just let me know what you thought."
Yeah, I'm looking at the not the playable trailer, but the older trailer, and it looks so seamless, and the animations for those like selections and choosing where to go are just so like. It's funny how like an adventure game will pull you out of the game in some way, but this one feels like you're actually part of it, just based on the art style they use and the clever like foreground and background usage that they use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the animation in this game is just really, really well done. The character designs too look really varied and unique. Like all the citizens of Arthurton they just look very different. None of them look generic. Jenny herself, like she's got like big, thick-rimmed glasses and kind of looks like a dork. But she still looks like a fun character, and she's really eager and earnest and wants to solve this mystery. And I just really love the characters. I love the art style. I love this type of game. I'm very, very excited for this.
Very cool.
All right, and yeah, so that's really about it. With the one exception of my indie arcade.
Indie arcade.
As you may remember, last week, Justin had given me the game Spy Chameleon to play for the Nintendo Switch.
Yes, I did, and I was really excited for you to pick this up because it was something that I was looking at to pick up eventually at some point, and it just looks fun and like goofy, so I really want to hear your thoughts.
Alright, so Spy Chameleon is, let me see, Spy Chameleon himself we talked about this last week, he just looks like a big goofball. I mean, chameleons just naturally look silly with their big giant eyes on the sides of their heads, and Spy Chameleon is no different. He's got the big giant eyes jutting out on either side of him, and he's got this big mask trying to hide his face. And I mean, he looks like he's a very sneaky guy. Like he's like, all right, I'm gonna sneak into this building and I'm going to I'm gonna accomplish my goal. To be honest, like he doesn't even really look so much like a spy as he does a thief. Like the stereotypical like thief look where he's wearing a big black sweatshirt and he's got like the big black eye what do you call them? The eye covers, the blindfolds with the eyes cut out over them. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So Spy Chameleon is like any good stealth game in that it's not very good. Pretty much like, honestly, the game itself feels more like a mobile game than like an actual like dedicated game. Like it feels like something that you could play on your phone or something while you're just waiting to get somewhere else. With like high, not so much like 2D graphics, but like one of those 3D mobile games. It's got like different stages to it. So like you have, this is stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. And there are all of these different rooms that you need to travel around. And the like the whole point of it is to get from the start of the room to the other side of the room. And now you're a chameleon. So as you sneak around the room, it's from a top-down perspective. Yeah, it's like slightly isometric, but for the most part, it's top-down. And you start out in this one green area, and then you venture out into the main rooms of this mansion that you're infiltrating. And in some of the rooms, this progresses as the game goes along. There are rugs that are scattered around the floors. From an interior design perspective, these rugs make absolutely no sense with the style of the rest of the room. All right? So that's strike one in this game's sense of interior design. All right? Because like there's like red rugs and blue rugs and green rugs just scattered willy-nilly all over. It's a mess. But anyway, as you go over these rugs, Spy Chameleon, his default color naturally is green, but you can also, by pressing a button, will change your skin color to red or yellow or blue, or back to green again. And you need to coordinate this as you step over the rugs so that your color matches the rug that you're standing on top of, because there are robots and spy cameras that are, well, security cameras that are monitoring the room at all times. And if you step into the line of sight of these robots when you're not standing on the rug, or if you're standing on the rug with the wrong color on, the robots will catch you, and you'll have to start the mission over again. So you try to like get to each of the rugs, and there are different checkpoints that you can mark down. There are flies to collect, which the game starts out by telling you, oh, the flies will ordinarily tell you which path is the right path to take. This is true for like the first 5 stages. After that, the flies are kind of scattered in like, oh, that's a challenging area to get flies because there's a lot of robots around there, but there aren't any rugs to stand on. Do you think you can get all those flies? And I'm like, man, probably. It isn't really that hard to get the flies and not get caught. That's really just about it. You progress through each level. There are different markers that you can achieve as you go through each level. Like you can beat the level, and you can get achievements for, and not like real achievements, but like an in-game, like, oh, you got all the flies, or you got through there in the fastest time possible. When you beat one of the levels, you also unlock a third ability. You got all the ladybugs. So if I were to go through and replay that stage, there are going to be ladybugs that are in very hard to reach places, and if I can get all of them and beat the stage, then that will be a little notch in my belt. Like, hey, you did it, you got the ladybugs. And I'm like, cool. There really isn't an overarching story to the game.
Didn't really expect one.
It's really just like, here's the room, sneak through it, you're done. And you just repeat that several times. Some of the stages end in like a harder mission, like, oh, you need to sneak out with a priceless painting, which further lends credence to my belief that Spy Chameleon isn't so much a spy as he is a thief.
Yeah, I guess you're not really doing any spying at all in the game.
No, you're just sneaking through this mansion and you're stealing stuff. Like, it isn't like, oh, these are top secrets or whatever. You know, you're not trying to infiltrate the gecko headquarters to learn what they're up to. You're just sneaking through and stealing stuff.
Sir, are you stealing that painting? Oh, no, I'm not a thief. I'm just a spy. Oh. Okay.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fine. I guess it's again, like, if you're playing the game just to kill time, or if you just need something to distract yourself for a little bit, the game is perfectly fine there. As a long-term thing where you're like playing it for a while and trying to get everything, it really is. I mean, honestly, that isn't the type of game that this is designed to be. Like, it really feels like this game was designed specifically for you just to entertain yourself as you're just kind of waiting for other things to happen. And I mean, that in and of itself is fine. So I can't really criticize Spy Chameleon too much. For what the game is, it's pretty fun. It's enjoyable. Is it the best game I've ever played? Am I enthusiastically recommending it? No, but I can't say that it's terrible and no one should ever play it. Like, it's an absolutely fine game that if you feel like it, you can certainly play.
Well, that's exactly what I was predicting, probably. And I'd like to see that on the back of the box.
It's fine. It's okay. Play it.
Yeah. Play it. Play it only if you really feel like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you were sneaking around chameleon style.
Yeah, no, I was too. It's rare when I get these opportunities, so I'm glad that you were able to give me this opportunity, Justin. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Justin, have you ever, reached the conclusion of a long-term plan that is finally at its culmination?
Oh, God.
And you just, you have that feeling of, what do I do now? How is he going to react? Oh, man.
I don't know why I thought you would have mercy on me this week.
Oh, no. I couldn't wait. I couldn't possibly wait any longer. Not for this. Not for this one, Justin. See, I want to give you the history of this before I actually give you the game.
Oh, God.
I had wanted to give you this game back in December when it was my turn to give you the Indie Arcade. But at that point, I think, you couldn't make the show for whatever reason, so I had Elena on. And at that point, I was like, Elena... I think Elena was the one who gave me the game anyway that week, so it wouldn't have mattered. But I wanted to give it to you the following week, but that was when we went into our Game of the Year awards.
Right.
We went to our Game of the Year awards, and then we went on our holiday break, and I was like, okay, I can wait on this one. And at first, Justin, I'd had an opportunity, I think, the week before, but I didn't want to because I didn't want to be that cruel to you. I didn't want to be so mean. But then over the holidays, I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Forget that. I'm just going to give it to him and just take him down a peg. And then you won that frickin' Quiz Time Supreme, Justin. And then I knew, crap, I can't give him this game because then he's just going to turn it around back on me.
Wow, he's really thought a long time about this, hasn't he?
This kid can really hold a grudge.
I have been thinking about this game for forever. And Justin, finally, now that you've used your Quiz Time Supreme, you can't flip this back on me. I want you to remember that. You can't flip it back on me.
I accept my fate.
I have waited, Justin, so long to say these words to you. You have no idea. Justin, your Indie Arcade game for this week is Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
Oh, no.
Oh, that felt
good.
That felt so good.
Justin. Oh. You good?
Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. A game I made for a certain kind of person to hurt them. That is the description on Steam.
Yeah, I actually am very familiar with this game. I've watched videos, I've heard people talk about it, and it just looked like a very miserable experience, so of course I just didn't think I'd ever play it, but of course it was very stupid of me to ever think that, because of course Chris would take the first chance he could to slam
He
me into
didn't.
this
He
game.
waited until the right moment, and then he did it.
Oh yeah, I guess that is true. He really wanted to twist that
Oh
dagger.
man, I have sat on this for so long. Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy is a punishing climbing game, an homage to Jazzo's 2002 B-game classic Sexy Hiking. You move the hammer with the mouse, and that's all there is. With practice, you'll be able to jump, swing, climb, and fly. Great mysteries and a wonderful reward await the master hikers who reach the top of the mountain.
I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to embrace this because I am curious how far I could actually get with some practice, and like if it is possible to even improve, your playing of this game. Like, is it all just luck? Is there no skill at all? Like, I am a little curious, so I guess in that regard, I'm happy to be playing it, but I also foresee extreme aggravation and frustration, and I know I will be ripping the head off of my Chris Gold voodoo doll as I'm playing this game.
Wait, you have a voodoo doll with me?
What do you say we take a quick break? And when we come back,
Crap.
we will talk about games that make us confused of how they are just so popular.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Welcome back. It is time for Chris, Lewis, and I to talk about an interesting topic. These are some games that are very popular, maybe with, the mainstream, I guess you could say. Just games that have a lot of people playing them, and all three of us kind of collectively aren't really sure how these games are so popular. Maybe we think about it in different ways. But we put a list together of games that we think about, when thinking about this topic. And Lewis, again, this was your idea. Is there any particular game you want to start talking about?
I'll just go down the list. So the first big name one that's been popular recently that, I hear about all the time is Fortnite. And along the same lines, I'll also throw in PUBG because they're the same game. But, I hear Fortnite all the time. And I keep hearing it's a free game. Everybody, you can pick it up. It's easy to play. But I still see people come in and they buy V-Bucks, which is the online currency, I guess, for Fortnite. And I'm wondering, how is it so successful and why are so many people playing it? And the only thing I can come up with is that, it's a battle royale game. They're still like a brand new genre. But as far as that goes, I'm just completely unaware of why, like, kids especially enjoy Fortnite.
Yeah, and I just want to mention quickly, we're not saying any of these games are bad in any way. We're just a little, I guess you could say we're just surprised of their popularity, because some of these games are, like, ridiculously big right now. Like, people that don't even really know anything about video games have heard of some of these titles, and it's just a little surprising to us. I guess we're gonna try and figure out what makes these games, be so popular among people that don't even really play games.
I feel like a lot of the attention that these games have gotten, especially a lot of the games that are on this list that I'm looking at right now, a lot of it has to do with, I feel like, the rise in streaming services and Let's Players as a whole. Like, these games in and of themselves, are fun and they're fine in their own right, depending on your tastes, of course. But I feel like there's a certain something about these games where people at a higher level play these games and stream them for a wider audience that makes people want to tune in and actually watch these games get played, because there's just something fun about watching someone play these particular games.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it, and I definitely think that's valid, especially with Fortnite and PUBG. PUBG was probably the most mainstream hit game of last year. Fortnite is pretty much seeming like that's going to be it for this year. Fortnite is basically kind of like a clone of PUBG, but with a different aspect on building and crafting and building defenses. And it's very popular with gamers, especially younger gamers now. And I think a lot of that actually combines with another game that's on this list that we'll get to in Minecraft, and that the ability of adding this new layer of building things, it reminds me a lot of just the creativity and building of Legos, when we were kids, and just being able to build whatever you want, building these contraptions,
right,
vehicles, buildings, just that ultimate creativity, that sandbox style, if you will. And I think that's a very popular thing, especially for younger gamers. We're going to see that a lot in these upcoming games that we're going to talk about. It's definitely, of course, it was in Minecraft. And I think the similarities there of just being able to be so creative is what helps make these games more accessible and more expansive.
Yeah, and I think on top of that in particular, Fortnite, just focusing on that right now, is so popular because not only is it taking aspects of PUBG and turning it into a fun game, but I think it's good timing on their part because it was made for consoles, which a lot of kids, they'll probably pick up a console before they pick up a PC.
Right.
And it's also the style is relatable to them because it's very bright colors and the characters are very cartoonish,
yes.
so they're easy for kids to develop. It's not a lot of violence as PUBG is. PUBG is kind of like an army looking game where Fortnite has shooting, but it's I would say it's friendlier. As far as shooting people is friendly to a game. But I agree. I think it's the crafting, it's the accessibility, it's the fact that it's free. Yeah, I think it's just a lot of things. It's got Fortnite and Epic Games are just really hitting the ball on this one.
I think the thing that's really interesting about the dynamic between Fortnite and PUBG is just how Fortnite just suddenly became the popular game versus PUBG. I remember last year, it was all anyone could talk about was, PUBG, PUBG, PUBG. And then Fortnite announced that they were coming out with their Battle Royale mode, and they had got a lot of criticism because people said, they're just copying PUBG's success, blah, blah, blah. I remember that was actually a big controversial topic last year. And
yeah, we had it on a True or False episode, I believe.
Yes, we did. And then Fortnite just PUBG was still the big game in town, and then it just wasn't. And then Fortnite was the Battle Royale mode just all of a sudden became the it game. PUBG didn't get any airplay on the major news networks like CNN or MSNBC or Fox. Fortnite did. and people talked about, oh, kids are playing so much of Fortnite, they're playing it during school, yada yada, and I was like, where did this come from? Like, the Battle Royale mode in Fortnite had been out for several months by the point where it started becoming really, really popular. And I guess I just don't understand, like, what was the impetus for that? Was it just like a slow burn of people slowly playing the game and word of mouth saying, hey, this game is really cool, it's better than PUBG in our opinion?
Yeah, that's a great opinion. It was like it happened almost instantaneously overnight. Like, it was like crazy. I mean, I remember that too, of people being like, oh, Epic's just totally ripping off PUBG and stealing their whole style. And then, yeah, like, I felt like I had like taken a week of like not really following game sites or anything for a little while, and like in that week, like, there was just a huge shift, and now like everybody was playing Fortnite, and like people aren't really talking about PUBG that much. And yeah, it was just really interesting how that happened so quickly.
Yeah, I read that it's not the fact that Epic Games completely took this idea from another game and used it for their like slowly like deteriorating game, because Fortnite was originally supposed to be just a zombie run with a save the world map and all that stuff. But they took it and then they said, look, this game could do that, so let's make a version of that for our game and see how well it does, and we'll make it free. And it just blew up in success. So I think from a game designer's perspective, that's a really interesting story that I would love to hear one day. But I think we pretty much tackled Fortnite at this point.
Yeah.
So the next game I have on my list is the Five Nights at Freddy's series.
This is probably the game of this list that I just cannot understand its popularity. I actually remember the first time I walked into, I guess it was like a Target or something, and I was like walking through the toy aisles, and there was not only was I shocked there was Five Nights at Freddy's toys, there was a Five Nights at Freddy's toys section of like stuffed animals and keychains and t-shirts, and I was like, people like this game like that much? Is that popular? Like, I was absolutely blown away at seeing that.
Yeah, it's that game, and also this other game I put on my list, Hello Neighbor. It's almost the exact same kind of game. It's not exact same, but it's, a survival horror kind of game that franchised into toys and different things for kids. And like once in a while I'm working, and a mom or a kid comes in and they say like, oh my god, they have Hello Neighbor. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe they have this. It's like, how do people know this game? First of all, Hello Neighbor is not even a good game, and yet it's still successful. Like, at least Five Nights at Freddy's is a good game, like indie games that you can bite into for like 6 hours a day, and there's still like every game in the series is good, and there's a reason why people like it. Hello Neighbor is just a complete mystery to me.
I'm actually unfamiliar with Hello Neighbor. I've never actually heard about it.
Okay, so basically the concept of Hello Neighbor is that you are a neighbor, and you have a new neighbor moved in next door to you, and he's kind of secretive, and I'm pretty sure you're like a villain. You're some kind of like a stalker or some kind of like a thief, and you want to know what's inside your neighbor's home. And it just gets like really like crazy. Like, his basement's full of like mechanical stuff, and there's like a Ferris wheel in the house, and I think it becomes like what turns into like a stealth game becomes like this weird psychological horror. And it's based on what I've seen. I haven't seen too much of it either. It looks interesting enough, but I hear it doesn't play very well, and it's not very good. but yeah, it's also very popular, which is why I'm always like, I don't know why, like, kids like it so much.
I'm looking at screenshots of the game, and the neighbor looks like a very a very buff, broad-chested man. He's got a giant square head with a large chin, and just a really, really twirly mustache. Like it is a sinister-looking mustache.
Yep, that's him. That's the design for the character.
Like an old cartoon, like tie a princess to the train tracks kind of villain.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, where they pulled the design from.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's just turned into this huge like franchise with all the different character designs and the vinyl figurines and the stuffed animals and the keychains. It just gets like toy wise, it's really big.
And there's a lot of games too, right? Isn't there like 5 or 6 of them? They come out pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, the indie developer who makes it just like keeps making them. Like he like shoots them out pretty quickly. I think he just came out with his like 6th game in the series. I haven't even seen the 6th one yet.
I didn't even know they were still going. I thought they had reached a satisfying conclusion.
Not only are they still going, Chris, but there's a lot of fan-made games that are based on Five Nights at Freddy's. Other people will go out of the way to make their version of a game that's similar to Five Nights at Freddy's, and there's hundreds of them.
I guess. Man, it's funny too. Like, I'm looking at the timeline of entries, and like there was a point where like they were releasing like 2 games every single year for this franchise. And it's just like, man, like they were just, I guess, just peppering people with these Five Nights games, and it was just like, I mean, they're all functionally the same game, so it couldn't have taken that long to actually recreate the same gameplay style and just release it as like, oh, here's the second one, here's the third one, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Another cool thing about it is that like all the other entries, that the YouTuber gaming streamer community for that game is really strong. Whenever one comes out, like everybody's just on that game. Like Markiplier's playing it, Jacksepticeye plays it, the Game Grumps play it sometimes. The game theorists will do like a theory for every for every game that comes out.
Right. Yeah. Just to add to Chris's point that like the exposure on these videos to a younger generation who is always on YouTube, and especially video game related YouTube videos, maybe that is what's getting them more into the game. Instead of them actually playing the game, they're just watching these other guys play the game. And
yeah, that could be why kids are into it a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I certainly love like watching people play it, so I can understand to a degree why people like Five Nights at Freddy's so much. I think it's fun how it's a weird take on Chuck E. Cheese in the sense that it's like a horror game.
No, I feel like it's an accurate description of your average Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, just kids getting stuffed into animatronic machines every day.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jenny.
I think the game on this list that we most can relate to has to be Minecraft, because we fell into that hole multiple times. We've played that game so much. We still play that game. We play in spurts where we'll, spend a couple weeks playing, building a server, everybody in there, and then we get a little tired of it, and we fall off, and we go back in and play it again. And honestly, I could see us doing that for like years on end. And a lot of that is tied into what we said before about just how creative you are in that game. You can literally build anything you want. There is a creative mode where you can do anything. You can fly, you can go underground, you can build any kind, you can summon any block, any item in the game. Like the world is your sandbox, obviously, and people really enjoy that sort of just getting lost into the world of building whatever you want, and the added adventure aspect of it, of getting weapons and fighting enemies and going underground. Like, this game has a lot to offer, and to me makes probably the most sense of why this one was so popular, especially with kids.
Yeah, I'm not. I guess when I put it on the list, the knowing what Minecraft is and the gameplay it is isn't a mystery to me as much as how it's still kind of going strong after all these years. Like, I remember when it first was like, when people started just talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, Minecraft! This guy, Notch, he made it in his basement, and like everybody's downloading it, and it's really fun." And now it's like this like multi-console, multi-million-dollar franchise, and there's like, you know, stuffed animals of it. There's like mystery boxes that people will buy from it. There's like you can make they have it on the Xbox, they have it on the PS4, they have it on mobile. They have so many like things with Minecraft that it doesn't seem to die down at all. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, or at least it stays big over time.
Yeah, no, it's it's interesting the way that the merchandising for this franchise is just really, really taken off. And I mean, I feel like a lot of it is owed, and I guess this kind of like ties back into the merchandising of like Hello Neighbor and Five Nights at Freddy's. Is a lot of the character designs are really unique and just really like they're kind of cute in their own way. Like I know there's like the skeletons and the creepers. Like, yeah, in the game they're very dangerous, but I mean, when you take a step back and you actually look at the designs of them, I mean, they're actually kind of adorable. You know, like they just have that they have that je ne sais quoi about them, and that just appeals to, I guess, like a lot of people. Like, they want to have the stuffed toys of them. They want the little foam pickaxes that you can see at like Barnes and Noble or something similar like that. Let me see. You've got, I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's. Those character designs appeal to sort of like the more, I guess, macabre set, because those characters are a little bit more frightening than they are cute, but it's still merchandise that people who are like into those games want to pick up. So I feel like just the uniqueness about how these games look is also like a big selling point in what exactly it is that makes them have that longevity that keeps them going for years after they've initially been released. Whereas most games, they're released and then after like a month or a few months, they just kind of taper out and die off.
Okay, well, let me pose a question, because I think this will really hit the mark of what I'm trying to like figure out. Say you two were in a toy store, and the only toys they had were a foam pickaxe of a Minecraft pickaxe, or a foam sword that was a replica of like the Master Sword from Zelda. You would say you would probably most likely pick up the Zelda sword, right?
Of course.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So what would say turn a kid why would a kid nowadays want to pick up the Minecraft pickaxe over the Zelda sword? For some reason, I feel like Mario and Nintendo characters have a wider appeal, but they don't seem to be as popular as some of these games on our list nowadays.
I think the answer to that is because we grew up with Zelda and Mario, and, you know, we fell in love with video games playing them, and that for a lot of these younger kids, like, while they're fully aware of Mario and Zelda and, you know, those early game characters that still have games today, and they probably still played them, they might just not have that kind of connection because they didn't physically like grow up with them. They didn't follow Mario and Zelda and all those earlier games throughout the years, see their evolution and everything. Whereas like, Minecraft is still in the original run. Five Nights at Freddy's isn't that old, so like maybe for them like these are the games and the characters that got them into video games. So they're gonna have more of a closer relationship to them.
No, I think that's
Okay.
that's actually an excellent point. Like that's probably the best point that I've heard so far as to why these games are so appealing is because, like you said, these are the games that these kids have grown up playing. Like these are, I mean, I talk about sometimes about how this is the first time anyone's played a game, baby's first video game, but they play these games and that's what they've grown up playing. Like we grew up playing Mario and Zelda and Link to the Past and all of those other amazing games that we grew up with during the SNES and the Genesis days. But nowadays, kids are growing up with these really, really, like, they're kind of simple in design, but complex in mastery. Like, here's a simple task that you need to do. Like in Minecraft, just take these blocks and you can build structures with them. But you can expand that in all sorts of amazing, unique ways. And these are the first games that these kids are being introduced to. So it makes sense that that's what they would latch onto as their seminal gaming experience. That's an excellent point, Justin.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you think about it, like for us, we're growing up with Mario, let's say, right? What is our option? We have to move from left to right and beat the level. Imagine growing up, your first video game you're playing is Minecraft, where you can do anything and build anything. Like that must blow their minds. Like, I mean, that's crazy to like that is your first video game experience. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's probably gonna raise their expectations pretty high to be able to start with something like that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't consider like what your first game could really affect you, because my first game ever was playing like Final Fantasy VII, and that's why they have such a huge place in my heart. So I'll always go back to like a Final Fantasy game no matter how bad it is.
Oh no, of course,
So...
yeah. Not only is it one of your favorite games, it got you into playing video games. It brought you into the medium. Like that's absolutely going to have a special place for you.
Yeah, I also thought about how accessibility is probably a huge part of it. If most of the time when I'm selling something to a new customer, like a new console, their first question out of it is like, what's better, PS4 or Xbox? And they don't even consider like the new Nintendo console or any of the handhelds. They just assume that these are the biggest consoles, so which one do I pick? And I guess for a lot of kids, they don't have access to Mario and Zelda for an Xbox or a PS4, so they don't have a lot of option as far as like what games they would play. And that's why games like Fortnite and Minecraft are so easily accessible that they'll pick up.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And then you can play those games on your phone now on iPads. Like imagine if we were at school and we could play Super Mario Bros on like these little devices that we kept in our pockets. I would never pay attention. I would be like in the principal's office every day.
Yeah, that's true. Mobile games are also getting like a huge thing. Like that's why a lot of kids are, and they'll play with their phones faster than they will play with like a Game Boy nowadays.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I guess we'll move on from there since we kind of tackled that one. The next one I think is pretty big is the Call of Duty series. A lot of people play Call of Duty. It's one of those games that just never dies. Any new game that comes out of it, and there's a lot of games that like follow the same formula, like the same thing with like Far Cry 5 and any of like the Sniper series or Just Cause. They're all pretty much like you shoot a gun, you point at it, and it kills stuff and explosions. But I can't see how games like that can be so fun if you're only playing them for all of like 10 hours, and then you return it and then get a new game that's the same kind of shooter.
Yeah, for me, it's the idea of not that I'm not surprised that people like Call of Duty. I'm surprised that over the years, like these Call of Duty games really haven't changed that much. I feel like, and they just haven't really seemed to see a decline in that. They're still extremely popular. People will always love
Yeah.
that first-person shooter multiplayer, and
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because Call of Duty's been around for a little while, and on consoles,
There's so many of them.
I think it was like probably one of the biggest first-person shooters for a lot of people, and maybe, like as we said with other games, like if that's your first-person shooter and you grew up with it, you're going to keep playing them, and every year a new one comes out, you got to try that one. So that would make sense maybe for a lot of people, and a lot of people that play Call of Duty, like that's probably one of the only games that they play, at all per year. So maybe they look forward to that all year.
Yeah, it's weird because it doesn't play into the fact that, like, for all these other games, it relates to you being a kid and you experiencing it, playing it for the first time. But it has more to do with the fact that for some reason, most like normal like people who aren't big into gaming, they'll see a shooter and assume like that's a video game. Like that is my idea of what a video game should be. And so that's all they'll buy. And it kind of disappoints me because it feels like they're not opening, they're not branching out, they're not seeing what else is out there. There's a lot like of games out there that you can buy. If all you do is play shooter games all the time, then what else do you do? It's like, then why even play games at this point?
Both of my brothers played the Call of Duty series games religiously for a time. Nowadays, both of them are way too busy with their own schedules to really have any sort of time for video games. But back several years ago when everyone was in college, my younger brother was in high school, for instance, they played a lot of Call of Duty. They were those types of gamers you're talking about, Lewis, where really the only video game that they played was the Call of Duty games. I remember one time, my younger brother, he had begged me to pick up the latest Call of Duty for him because he didn't have a job, he didn't have enough money. So I was like, all right, I'll get it for you. So I bought him the game, and I had to go to work the next day, and I worked in the morning. I left him the game outside his door, and then I went to work, and I got back at 2, and he was downstairs playing it. And I said, oh, how's the campaign going? And he's like, oh, I beat that a couple hours ago. I'm like playing multiplayer right now. And I was like, what? Like, you beat the single player already? He's like, yeah, I woke up at 10 and like I found the game. Thank you, by the way. And then I popped it in, and yeah, just blazed through the campaign, and he was already playing multiplayer. I was like, what? I was shocked that the single player was that short. I was like, you got through it that fast? My God. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the appeal that they had was, every one of his friends picked up the game. So there was that peer pressure appeal of everyone is playing it, I want to play it too. As for the game itself, I mean, just the design of it, like at the time when the Call of Duty games had come out, first-person shooters, as we know them today, are really kind of in their infancy. Call of Duty, they were some of the best feeling shooters out there, where like actually shooting the gun felt good. They had sweeping dramatic music because most of them were set during World War II, and you had all these different missions you had to accomplish. There was a very easy story to integrate there, where you're the Americans, you're the good guys, and you're fighting against the Nazis, the ultimate evil guys. So you can just plug that in and go. The games felt great to play. And then it was just that familiarity as the games progressed. People just wanted to keep playing more and more of the Call of Duty, there were some features that were integrated that people really, really liked. I noticed my brothers both kind of fell out of playing the games once they actually leaped into the more modern era with like Black Ops, and then they started introducing zombie modes in the multiplayer. And they're like, this is fun for a while, but it's just not really engaging. And I feel like that's just part of what made Call of Duty as popular as it was for a long time. I feel like nowadays Call of Duty certainly doesn't have the same luster or appeal that it did back when the games first came out. Like, nowadays a Call of Duty comes out and it's like, all right, yeah, that's cool. But it's not the same fervor that it used to be back when we were younger, like even 10 years ago, I want to say. And I feel like that's just because first-person shooters have become so prolific nowadays, and you have so many other different options that frankly do the whole first-person shooter genre a lot better, and people have gravitated towards those games more. So I feel like it's kind of a product of its time. When it first came out, it was the best of the bunch, but nowadays it's just kind of old hat.
I know from what other people tell me, like Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is probably the best of the series. That's one of like the staples. And then Black Ops and Black Ops 2 are pretty much another great two entries that people just keep talking about. But yeah, like you said, like nowadays they'll keep making them, but they're not as good as those games were. Like now the latest one that just came out, World War II, like tries to go back to that old like early Call of Duty where it's set in the World War II era. And a lot of people say it's the same thing. Campaign's too small. There's not really a lot you can do. Multiplayer is okay. I thought the zombie maps were probably one of the best things about the Black Ops games, and that's one of the things I would play a lot with my friends up in college. But I'm already hearing about Black Ops 4, and people are excited about that. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's one of those games that, you know, they'll keep making if it makes money. So I think I put Forza for my sister because she keeps saying she doesn't understand why people like Forza or any kind of like realistic driving game.
Yeah, that one I think is a little unfair. I think that's meant, you know, for people who love cars, and none of us really are that into cars, so I just don't think it's like for us. But I can.
Yeah, I think it's like a niche market.
Yeah.
Although I will say, Rocket League is probably one of the funnest car games I've ever played.
I can attest to that too. But that doesn't feel like an actual racing game. That's just like,
oh god, if Rocket League was real, that would be horrifying.
Imagine like, oh, here's the Rocket League match, and people like crash into each other. Oh god, like this, like within the first 5 seconds of the first match,
people would die all the time.
Yeah, Rocket League is canceled.
Okay. Well, the last thing I put on the list was Grand Theft Auto. A lot of people will go back and play Grand Theft Auto. It's just, again, one of those games that it just remains fun even after its release, and they're still making content for. I have mixed feelings about it just from the fact that, kids seem to be able to get their hands on it even if their parents don't care. So I'm not like I can't. It's not that I don't understand why it's fun, because it's obviously a fun game, but I'm wondering like why it's one of those games that people just seem to keep going back to after so long.
I would guess there's a lot of variety in the Grand Theft Auto games of things to do, so that makes it a lot of fun. Just the fact that you could steal like any car, I think, is very like enticing to a lot of people. They're like, oh, try different cars, see how they handle. Like, I can basically take whatever I want at any time. Like that mentality is pretty addicting and fun to explore. And I know with the later games, the writing was getting really good. Rockstar's been putting together some really cool stories. They're great at character development, character creation, and I am really impressed with how they've handled the series over the years. And whenever I think like, oh, they must be like running out of ideas, or they're doing like the same thing. Like the newest entries always seem to like amaze me. So I can understand definitely how this is really popular. Personally, like I'm not really into the games that much. But I definitely can see how so many people really, really get pumped for these games. And like when a new Grand Theft Auto comes out, it's like an event, man. People are stoked.
Oh yeah, it's that whole open world sandbox concept. Plus, you mix that in with Rockstar's polish and the level of detail that they put into the gameplay, the environments, and it's not to mention just how beautiful a lot of these games look, especially the latest games. It's a winning formula. It's something that people want to experience and try out, and cause mayhem, consequence free, and yeah, it's just something that a lot of people really enjoy. Like Justin, like you said, they're not really all that appealing to me personally, but I can see what people see in them.
Yeah, and I think it's also Rocksteady, or is it Rocksteady, or is it Rockstar who does the game?
Rockstar.
Yeah, I think Rocksteady does the Batman games, like
Batman games. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's also they've almost made like a brand out of it. So I'll give an example. I had a customer who come in, and I asked him what he was looking for, and he said, "Oh, do you have Grand Theft Auto? I'm looking to get that for my kid." And you usually try and deter them from buying it because it's such a huge like rated M game. It shouldn't even be rated M. It's more like a rated A for adults. Like that's how like just the content in it is. So we usually try to deter them from buying it, and we give them suggestions. I gave him another suggestion. It was Lego City Undercover, and it was the same exact game, but it was a Lego game, so it was a lot more kid friendly. It was like you do the same thing. You're a cop and you're getting into cars and you're stealing, and you take up. You can pretty much just like get into any car and go and do driving missions, and then fight bad guys and all that stuff. And I gave him that option, saying like this is good for your kid because it's age appropriate and it works.
Right.
And he told me no. I just want Grand Theft Auto. It really like upsets me that not only is Grand Theft Auto so popular, but it's the only game that people can relate know that is good. And it's like, oh, I guess it's one of those games you just can't fight. Like it's too like Rockstar has made such a good game out of it that it's hard to deny people who want to play it. I wish there was like if they had made another game that was more age appropriate, then I would probably tell people to play this one. It's the same people who did it, but it's more for kids.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation though to give for somebody who like you want to give someone the experience of the game but without the violence. Then Lego City Undercover, I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, so sometimes parents don't care, or they're just like, my kid wants this game, so I'm just gonna buy it. And customer's always right, man. You can't really argue with them.
I will say I am looking forward to Red Dead Redemption 2 because I love that series. Yeah. And that rumors are they're putting in a battle royale into the game, so that might be the next like Fortnite when it comes out.
We'll see. I'm gonna be the last cowboy standing. I don't know about the rest of you, but
that would be such a cool concept for a game for a battle royale because it is cowboys. So there's like no snipers, or you have to pretty much be up close and personal.
A 100-person old Western style
duel
draw.
Yeah, I'm already excited for that.
Yeah, just like everyone's in a circle facing each other. And then it's like 3, 2, 1, go! And everyone
100 bullets fire at the
and
same
everyone
time,
just
and
drops,
only one guy still standing.
everyone just dies immediately. Nobody wins.
That should have been the concept for 1-2 Switch.
Oh man. Well, Lou, man, thanks for being on. This was a really good topic.
I'm happy to be on. I thought this was fun.
Yeah, always a good time. We really had a lot to discuss here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
And maybe I'll look into some of these games a little bit more, and who knows? I mean, like a lot of these games I haven't played, so it's kind of hard for me to say like, oh, why are these popular? Maybe if I played them, I would get sucked in too.
Yeah, maybe. Keep up to date with the culture.
Yep, not get left behind. Sure. Don't want to be one of those old farts who doesn't know. Oh, these kids playing their Call of Duties and Grand Theft something. Yeah. You don't want to be that, Justin.
No, we don't. And with that, that's all for this week. Remember, Press Play repeatedly posts new episodes Tuesdays on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show, or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
You can follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Press A Repeatedly. I'm at cgold113, Justin is at oaf7724, and Lewis is at Louis T Animation. That's Louis, Louey, Animation. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's parpodcast@gmail.com. That's all for this episode. Chris, Justin, and Lewis signing off. And remember, to tell your son that you love him, press A repeatedly.
I'm trying to hold in my laughter.
Son, I love you. I don't believe you, Dad. And the son runs off.